Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our session, Keeping the Momentum Going. As Tori said, my name is Shar. I'm an Education Success Manager here at ST Math. I work really closely with Dr. Brian Pribble from Moline Coal Valley, and he'll be your wonderful presenter today. Terrell McGee, she introduced herself in the chat as well. She's also someone that works really closely with Moline Coal Valley as the John Deere program manager. So we're really excited for you all to be on today. We'll be monitoring the chat. So if you have any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat or unmute yourself. And we're happy to answer your questions as well. I'm going to kick it over to Brian.
Yeah, welcome everyone. My name is Brian Pribble. I'm Assistant Superintendent for Elementary Teaching and Learning in Moline, Illinois. I'm excited to be here today. First off, I just want to say that being virtual like this, I want to make it as interactive as possible. And, it's kind of something that when we do PD, which we've done the last 2 years, right, in our districts as teachers, administrators, people turn their cameras off and you can multitask, but I really want to make this helpful for you. My why today for this is to help share our insight on what we do here. As you can see, give you an overview of what we've done here on our implementation. But I know there's teachers, admin. I saw somebody from Waterloo, Lisa from Waterloo. My superintendent is from Waterloo, Iowa. So we're excited to have you guys all here, but feel free to use that chat because my background is a high school science teacher. And I was fortunate enough to then move into middle school and be an assistant principal. And then I went to elementary to be a principal, and here I am as assistant superintendent. So I've really, I've covered pre-K through 12 public education. And I want to help. I know one thing that's important is what are you going to get out of today that you can take back and use? So if you've got questions as a teacher, if you've got questions as a principal, if you got questions as district admin, please let's get those out today because I really want you to walk out of here with some great information. So we're going to start. And I've got 3 screens going. So you're all up in one corner. I'm looking at the presentation and I've got the chat here. So, and you guys will interrupt me. Hopefully everyone can hear me well. I'm going to make this happen. So here's our agenda today. And let's get right into it. So a little bit about where we are. We are in Illinois. There's Chicago on the map. Our district is a unit district, which in Illinois, it's called LUDA, Large Unit District. We are pre-K through high school. We've got about 7,300 students. There are stats there. I oversee 10 elementary schools, and our largest elementary school is roughly 650 students, and our smallest is about 180. We are one of the few districts in the state of Illinois that has no busing because we have neighborhood schools still, which is we're proud to say that we have that, and we've got a lot of great things happening. We are the home to John Deere, so Terrell may mention that partnership with Deere, but John Deere is that's what Moline's famous for. And if you look on this map, look where the Mississippi goes east and west, right? Like that is what we're kind of famous for. The Mississippi turns right there, and it's a great area. So that's a little bit about our district. Just at a glance, it's a great area. We're far enough from Chicago, so we're not considered Chicago. Actually, Chicago's about a 2.5 hour drive. So moving on here. So a little bit about, let's talk a little bit about belief in learning. I think it's so important in every position I've been in education. I think you have to have a why, right? You have to have your belief. And I think that this is something, when I started working on my doctorate back in 2015, I did a lot of research because actually as a principal then, we were using technology in the classroom, and that was something as a teacher I used. And back in 98 when I started teaching, I remember requesting a plasma TV for my classroom. Yeah, plasma TV. And my principal's like, what do you want to do with that TV? I'm like, well, I don't want to use the projector. I want to put stuff up there. And we just adopted a new curriculum, and it had some really cool pieces of technology that I wanted to use. So I kind of, I've always been a big fan of integrating technology, but where I'm going with my belief is simple. When I did my dissertation work. I got to read some old books. This is Evaluation of Improving Learning by Benjamin Bloom. It's copyright, I think, 1979. And then this is Human Characteristics of School Learning. And this graphic here in front of you is out of this book. And the way I summarize this graphic for me and my why is that when you look at education, right, our students have characteristics. They have entry behaviors, affective and cognitive behaviors. And in public school, we take all kids. All kids come to us, and our parents send us the best kids they have, right? Like, we don't get to pick and choose. And the one thing that that I realized quickly is, we can't blame the kids. We have to take all those kids and we have to take them where they are, and we have to instruct them. And that quality of instruction is key. And one of the theories in the school that Benjamin Bloom came out with is he talks about, if you read this book, he talks about tutoring and the impact of one-to-one tutoring and how that is like the best way students can learn. And obviously, if we have great quality instruction, we're going to have great learning outcomes, right? Well, and this really triggered my interest in knowing that as a classroom teacher, that it's impossible to hit everyone, especially if you're teaching a lesson that is really taught to the middle. Where I really saw value, and it really helped me shape my belief in learning, was when I saw what using technology to complement good teaching and learning, and giving teachers data to adjust instruction and the impact that can have on students, right? So this is kind of my why, and it's my simple belief in learning. And I think it's so important that when times are tough, the last 2.5 years we've gone through, is make sure you're focusing on your why and what that means to you, because that is what drives me every day, is trying to make sure that I'm always looking at how I can better our delivery to our students in learning and promote student achievement. So a little bit about, like, today is going to be, again, about what we've done with our implementation with ST Math. And I really want to just take a moment and reemphasize, if you've got questions as we go through this, teachers, admin, this presentation, I have a lot of experience in all those areas, and I may not necessarily touch on something, but if you've got a specific question about what may impact, or if you want to share something you're doing similar, please put that in the chat, because we'd like to do that. So again, as a principal, I took over a school, which was Washington Elementary. I was hired, and when I came in our district, the superintendent sat me down, and this was my first shot, right? Like, here I am, a secondary person, science, secondary high school teacher, coming from the middle school. You're going into elementary, and that was a big step for me, because I wasn't a curriculum person per se. In elementary, and I just knew that kids are kids and teachers are teachers, and one of my missions to become an administrator was to support teachers and students, right? Like, that was my why. But I remember my superintendent saying to me, like, hey, you've got a challenge here with this group of educators. Like, there are some students in this building that I don't know if they believe all kids can learn. And to back up a little bit, Washington was a very diverse building. It was our second most diverse building, had one of our highest diversified EL counts, and a lot of kids were below the poverty line, right? So we had a lot of students. And one thing that you get when you have a building like that, you get a lot of title funds, right? Like that's what Title I's about. And one of the things, I went into my first staff meeting, and I'm going back a little bit here out of order, but that belief in learning I just showed you was, I knew that if we need to focus on all kids, right? Like, if we talk today about equity is a big topic, giving everybody what they need. Well, if you really have, if you have a school and you're focusing on all kids and you're giving every kid what they need, and they are growing, and you can show they're growing, do you have equity issues? Think about that a second. Some people might say no. Some people say, well, depends. But yes, think about it. If we can reach all kids at their level and have really good quality instruction and show kids are growing, I would challenge you to think about that in terms of equity, because really that's what we're trying to do, right? And we always look at subgroups and students that are underperforming. But the ideal situation is to have all kids have success. But it starts with the teacher, it starts with you. What is your why, and do you believe all kids can learn? And I had to establish that. That was the very first thing I did as a building principal. But then the other thing that we started to look at was, how can we impact quality instruction? And I'll never forget, I went into this, I took over at Washington, and I went into the SAFE. And this is 2010, 2011. One-to-one was a topic with technology, right? Was anyone in 2010 or 2011, was your district one-to-one with any type of technology? Just curious. If you were, put it in the chat. We weren't. We had technology around. We had lab, we had carts. But I remember I went into this room and immediately into the SAFE, excuse me, and there was a group of these old Chromebooks, well, back then they were brand new. They were these Samsung, they were the silver ones. And I was like, what are these doing here? Well, somebody bought them with title money, previous administration principal in the building. And I said, well, they can't sit in the SAFE. They have to get into a classroom, right? So we started to look at that as I looked at that as a building principal, and I started to reach out to my teachers, and we started to talk about conversations, how we can complement our instructional practices, right? And I'm going to go into a little bit more detail on this, but when we talk about using technology, we talk about a program like ST Math, we really are looking at it as to complement those instructional practices, create that environment, and talk about those best instructional approaches and what that looks like. So that technology at that moment, for that one classroom, when I wheeled that cart down the hall and I asked my 5th grade teacher to take these, and she goes, really, you want me to have these? I go, yeah, I want those in your classroom, and I want you to try to use them. And she goes, well, what do you mean? I go, well, we'll work through that, but I promise you I'll get you support and we'll figure out what we can do. And this is prior to us bringing in ST Math or actually any type of digital platform. But we knew we wanted to work on that model and use that. And one of the things that you're going to hear me talk about is our math workshop model with guided math. If anyone here invested in guided math or use math workshop at the elementary, just curious? It's a great model, and you'll hear me allude to that a little bit more in the presentation. So anyway, some of our key pieces that I really focused on and is when you bring in something new or you bring in something extra, is people say, well, what am I going to give up, or where's my time? And one of the things that we really that we really focused on was taking a look at our structure of our day and figuring out what exactly we were doing, right? Like, before you can get into changing a structure, a math block, an ELA block, for example, for all the elementary teachers in here, like, that's a big deal, right? Like, and then when you have a leader come into a building that doesn't have any elementary experience, that you're probably not going to get much buy-in. So what we did is, me being the science guy, we really looked at exactly what a day involved, start to finish, minute by minute breakdown. And we realized that we really had some time in there. So that helped me when I actually took and put that into a spreadsheet and put that out in front of the teachers. That started to establish, like, hey, we might be able to do something here. We've got some time, how we're using our time, getting that buy-in, getting the teachers invested. So once we started to establish what we wanted to do, we started to look at those practices, and we started to dial in on trying to serve our students in the most efficient way possible, right? And as a teacher, that's very challenging, especially if you have 30 kids in a classroom, especially like the younger grades, right? Like K1, 2, I mean, those kids are all over the place, and trying to actually individualize instruction and do that is very tough. And hence, that's why we went to like a guided math workshop model. If you've heard of the Daily 5 before in ELA, where that is focused on different stations for students, well, that's essentially what we did. And one of the things that we broke down for our teachers was in that minute stock was we even went into our lessons and we talked about defining a lesson as we don't want anything more whole group than 15 minutes at the most. Like we just said, that is not an effective way to deliver instruction, but at the same time, we have to expose students to grade level standards too, right? So as we started to get this framework in place, that's where our technology became an integral piece of trying to support good teaching and learning, because when teachers aren't with students, what are they doing? Are they doing a worksheet? Are they working with each other? And that piece where we started to, as we got our instructional practices down, and we were using random technology, for example, as I started to get those Chromebooks in the classrooms become one-to-one, we knew we needed something that was going to support teaching and learning, but not only that, was going to engage students at their level and give us data, real data in real time to see progress. So all of that brought us to looking at some resources that we could bring into the classroom. And that's where we found ST Math. Thankfully, through our dear John Deere partnership in our region, John Deere really has been a great funder of initiatives that are proven to work, right? Like, and I remember having the conversation and looking at a flyer I got about ST Math and saying, hey, this is interesting, let's pursue it more. And we had a high population of students with ESL, and we wanted to, we knew teaching math with words was difficult. So that's where ST really appealed to us, because it was learning math without the language, right? So as we started to pursue that, we ended up getting ST Math on board. It was a great complement to our math block, and teachers loved it, students loved it. And we started to get that culture of, hey, this is something that is just embedded in our math block. And one of the things as an administrator, you administrators, like when you bring something in and you're asking teachers to do it, you know, it can be a little bit, well, I'm going to do it or I'm not going to do it, sometimes depending on your district, where some teachers might use it or not use it. Well, we set that establishment with the fidelity of usage and consistency. It became part of our culture, what we do, and we spoke that language, and we had some good results with it. So I'm going to move. I'm going to talk a little more about this. Any questions up to this point right now? I'm really throwing a lot out there, but anything in the chat? No? Okay. So when I talk about promoting culture, excuse me, I'm struggling here, but this is just a slide, and I'm a big picture guy. And when you look at pictures, and everything tells a story. So like, for example, for you admin and or even teachers, like when you're evaluating a teacher or teachers, if you're being evaluated, like, I don't know about you, but I hate going in and having to script stuff. I love taking pictures because I can look at a picture and I can tell a story, right? And one of the things that that I loved about social media at the time was, one, our district wasn't one-to-one when I took over at Washington, but I had a lot of title money, and I used that title money to buy Chromebooks, to get the technology. Then we invested in the digital platform, and that's where ST Math came in. Well, ST Math became integrated in our math block, and we started to have students, you know, just buying into it, loving it, having success. And then you can see in these pictures, this is just some of the stuff we would promote. The one picture here, we did video announcements, and we really focused on students having success. You know, like all these pictures that you see, I would come into rooms, and I would always try to focus on those kids that were engaged, and the kids would always want to look at me, right? Like, I don't know if any of you use social media, principals or even teachers, but kids always, oh, you know, Mr. Prible's in here taking pictures, and they always look at you. I said, no, I just want to see you doing what you're supposed to be doing and engaging. And pretty soon, you know, I would have to ask them to do the thumbs up photos that you see and that. But this is just an idea. When you talk about promoting culture, having something come in, having something new come in? Like, are you bringing it in, or are you involving it across all aspects of your building and really showing that, right, and promoting that? And that's something that I think is key. So when I went from the building level to the from the building level to the district, really what happened was I took that idea, because what had happened as principal at Washington, we had a couple other elementaries starting to really see that success. And I'm going to talk and show some visuals of that shortly here. But it became a little bit contagious, honestly, like, because when you see tweets going out and students holding up certificates and classrooms having leaderboards, other parents in the district, because we're a big district with 10 elementaries, at least in our area, and people talk, right? And so there was some district-wide conversation happening, and we made the commitment from a district to go all in with ST across the board at all of our elementaries. And that was over 6 years ago. Actually longer than that, might have been 8 years ago now, but we kind of implemented in phases. And when I came into the district office, one of the biggest things I had to focus on was misinformation. I don't know how it works in other districts, but districts our size, you get teachers, they go to grade level meetings, the grade levels talk, and information just gets like misinterpreted. And, oh, well, we're not doing that at this building. Well, why not? Well, because I talked to so-and-so at this building and they said they weren't doing that. So that was a challenge for me, because I'm a very science-oriented person. I like structure, believe it or not. And one of the things that I found was going back to what I learned as a principal is we need to lay things out. We need to make the case. We need to make sure that ST Math across the district is not in those elementaries is being used at the same level equally, because we weren't having that happen. And we had various results in some of our assessment data we were seeing. So that was one of the pieces to this whole my move was, when you become assistant superintendent and you're overseeing these multiple buildings, multiple administrators, there's a lot of opinions out there, but we really focused on our why, what we were trying to accomplish. I had to really take what I learned at the school level and foster that commitment, not only from teachers now, but for district, the principals as well. And in turn, that helped us have that conversation, that discourse across all buildings with teachers and students. So here are some ideas. And again, I don't have a lot of specific visuals in this presentation, but if you have a question specifically on something, please ask it. I'm going to try to speed through this quick because I know I want to leave time for questions. But one of the things I would say is, do you have consistency at your school, within your school? Do you have consistency within your district? What are your core practices, right? I talked about guided math. I talked about the math workshop model. One of the things that it's key, right? Like, you can do whole group math, and you can set aside time to do ST Math as a whole group. And guess what? I had some teachers do it that way. And it works great. But you have to establish a consistency. And I think having those core practices and making sure that you're integrating that and communicating that is very important. And it just be like in a classroom, right? Like a classroom teacher, if there's certain things that district wants you to do, you have to find a way, right, to integrate that in. But it helps when you have people around you that are doing the same things and you're having those same conversations. So going back to making sure that like, for example, grade level conversations, when we had grade level meetings, were not really organized very well. Grade levels would pick the conversations they want to talk to. So if you're a first grade teacher and you're going to your district-wide grade level meeting on a PD day, that agenda may be set just randomly. Now we've gone and we've really put in focus areas. An example on the screen here, you can see this is a snapshot of a document that we created that specifically lists out ST Math and our frequency, our average daily minutes, and what we expect. But it goes further than that. if as a district leader, as a principal, you've got to commute, you've got to like live that as well. Like if I'm going to say do this or hold to this, I've got to go in and support and look at that data and make sure it's happening, right? And you know, a lot of times the frustration comes is finding time. But when you lay things out, when you break things out, and you really over communicate where you are looking for what you're looking to bring together, it really helps. And I've never met a teacher that's never said to me, oh my gosh, let me go on my own on this and see where it goes. It's like, well, what would, you know, what's the district want us to do? You know, at least that's how it works in our district. People would rather have a little bit of guidance than non-guidance. And I think the message from this is when you're implementing things, have that communication, over communicate. As a matter of fact, one of the things I'm most proud of is we created a system level guidance that has really helped just shore things up across the board for all of our areas. And we have individual grade level resumes right now that we're really focusing on. But let's talk about the success real quick here. Let's talk about why this, our success is not just, it's not just because of ST Math, it's about the partnership. It's ST Math, anything you implement, like you buy, like if you just say, hey, we got a product, right? There's so much more to like ST Math than it being something your kids do. If you're not taking advantage of what Mind has to bring with their product, again, I refer to it, it's not a product for us, it's part of what we do here at Moline Coal Valley Schools. For example, is going back to everything I've said today. If I can't go back to teachers, my superintendent, my admin, and even students and parents and say, hey, what we're doing is working, that's a problem. Like you can't go on a feeling anymore and say, well, I think this is going to work. And one of the things that I would say is you've got to have that partnership piece. And that partnership piece, Shar, Terrell, the whole ST Math group from their data team has been phenomenal to help support us in helping us keep our students achieving, keep teachers engaged, keep teachers using the data they're getting, right? Like, because that's what it's all about. It's not about, oh, we did this today and that's it. It's more than that. And that piece of it, going back to our math workshop and looking at how ST fits in is so important. But you've got to support teachers. You want to be supported. You know, principals, you need to support those teachers. And it all comes down from the district, right? Like we are here to do that. And what we do in Moline is we work to provide resources for our teachers. We have a great website and our webinars are recorded. We provide those, all as much information as possible so that our teachers are, you know, are just constantly up to date. Because how many times in education, teachers, you get something, you get a PD, one and done, and it's over, right? Like, and then the next year, you're like, oh, what exactly was that, right? Like I call one of my phrases I use is circle wagon. We circle wagons around our core instructional practices. And I'll tell you what, every year that we have a conversation about looking at data, looking at reports, I always learn something new. And teachers say that all the time. Principals say that all the time. And matter of fact, we just had a great meeting recently with the ST Math, the Mind Research Data Team. And I came out of that meeting with a light bulb moment of saying, oh my gosh, this just helps me in my position to understand what we're doing, how it's impacting students, helping teachers. And that type of confidence is really important, especially in today's climate. So here are just some ideas about the partnership. Shar, Terrell, you guys want to add anything? I want to leave some time here going through this pretty quick. But you know, the ST Math champions, we have a launch day. You know, it's all about, I've read in the chat a little bit about, you know, people want to be, I've never met an educator that doesn't want to have success, like in whatever they do. And, you know, one of the things I will say is I've personally made a focus to celebrate success, highlight success, because in the field of education, we are constantly going, and people need to know when they do something. Teachers need to know when they have success, when students need to know they're having success. And even if it's not huge, it doesn't matter. When you celebrate success, it draws attention. And when you have attention, people are wondering. And when people get curious, they get involved and they ask questions. And, you know, I think that is one of the biggest things with anything you do, initiative, is don't just do something to do it. Do it with that idea, that why in mind, and where you want to be. So this is a headline that was just printed July 19th, 2022. This was sent to me. If anyone saw this, I added this in the presentation, but so long road to recovery, math reading scores remain below pre-pandemic levels. All right, now I've given you guys kind of a snapshot, a very brief overview of some ideas, and probably some of you are like, well, you know, I'd like to learn more, or maybe I don't want to learn more, but I'm really, in this virtual format, it's very difficult. But I added this today because I saw this came across my desk. So for us, this is data talking about our partnership with Mind and ST. This is our data. And this data to me is about effect size. This is just a snapshot. But when we talk effect size, I won't get into the analytics behind effect size, but it says at the bottom anything about 0.25. Go back to what I said. If you're a principal right now, if you're a district leadership, you're asking your teachers, your principals to implement something. You might have the best intent in the world. Everyone, like all educators, like I said, I've never met one that doesn't want to help kids. Sometimes they just don't know the right way to do it, or they lose focus on other ideas. But, you know, intent versus impact. We have to be impactful. I have to be impactful. I have to show impact. And that is so critical in today's climate. This here, there's so many pieces of data just on this one slide, but look at the effect sizes. And you know, when we talk about all students, like sometimes I always hear, oh man, Brian, these students are so high, and teachers have trouble differentiating, right? Well, that's the beauty of math workshop and guided math. We have rotations, but look at those sixth graders. Those are elementary students on sixth grade level, and they are doing ST. And for those 25 students who are probably some of our higher achievers, look at that, 0.78. ST math is helping differentiate for those teachers. Just awesome data to share out. And that's just a real short sample. But bottom line is, if we're asking students to do this, teachers are using it. We're taking time out of that packed already day. Is it working? And we can say, yeah, it's working very well. As a matter of fact, here's a snapshot. Going back to, I want to show you something real quick. This here talks about, this comes from NWA, which we use map growth. And this is a snapshot of our kindergarten. So if you can look right here, this is pre-pandemic, 151 for math. That was our mean RIT. This is pandemic levels. This was this year. Now we in Illinois, I'm just going to be honest, right across the river, which I failed to mention, is Iowa. And I could go for a burger during the pandemic across the river and not wear a mask. My neighbor owns a restaurant over there, owns a restaurant in Illinois. The Illinois restaurant, you had to wear a mask. Two different climates, right? And where I'm going with this is the pandemic was tough. A lot of you, I mean, it was tough. Illinois was really hard. We had shutdowns, things like that. But last year was sort of normal, kind of, not really. We started out really rough, and I think our data shows this, but this is a snapshot. And what I'm most proud of is this right here. This mean RIT for our district for our kindergartners was 159. Now I can go into that and say, well, where's that score? But that mean RIT is right on average. And more importantly, that mean RIT is 159, where pre-pandemic we were 151 there. Now you say, well, yeah, Brian, kindergartners grow like crazy. They do. So let's look at our third grade. And when I look at slopes of lines, I love to see a line that goes straight up and down when it comes to growth, right? Like that is critical. And check this out, pre-pandemic right here, 194, third graders, 196. I could show you data like this, but it is what it is. And those trend lines are going up. We're still coming out of this pandemic. And I will tell you this, the data meeting that I had with Mind just recently, it was so encouraging that I can say and look my principals and teachers in the eye in the next 2 weeks and say, the more puzzles that our students complete, we can translate that directly to higher RIT growth. Like it's if you know anything about research and you know about reliability of data, it's like a 99.5%. We took all of our data, Mind took all of our data, broke it down, looked at usage, looked at our students. And of course, that is like a no-brainer. Like you say, well, yeah, duh, Brian, the more they do, the more they're going to learn. But I mean, we've got the data to show that if they do this much, they're going to grow this much. And that is in my job and in leading others is really good to have an education, is to be able to come and say, wow, like what we're doing is working. And I think that is very important. Here's just some photos when you talk about culture. This is, and this, I picked a couple of these intentionally, but if you look at the kindergarten classroom down here, and then you look at this 4th and 5th grade classroom, and I put a mix in here, there's smiles all over the board. Again, ST Math has just been part of our culture, but more importantly, take a look at this. This is when you talk about what's everyday evidence look like, teachers, if you're doing great things and people aren't promoting that, or you're not promoting that via various ways, do it. I know it used to be like, oh, I can't put a picture of a kid up. Well, yeah, we have a policy, parents have to sign it. But I would always call those parents that said, no, I don't want to promote my kid, or I don't want my kid to be on social media, and say, well, wait a minute. Like I promise you, I only post positive things. And I've never met a parent that ever said, no, I don't want my kid in a picture where they're doing something great. And these pictures to me are very important, because you have that everyday evidence when you can walk in this picture of the classroom, there's a teacher in the back, it's hard to see, but you got kids working with each other. You got a kid on the Chromebook right there doing ST Math. There's just, and then you have some just ideas on what rotations could look like, right? And then my favorite is the math workshop in the right corner here, where there's Gigi and the kids get to pick, and you see Gigi, you can't even see because all the kids are picking Gigi. It's just awesome. So I'm going to close with that. Here's another example how we integrated. At my school, we got a claw machine, which that's a whole nother conversation on PBIS and how that works. But we even went out and bought penguins to replicate Gigi. And I'll tell you what, that was like a huge hit for kids to be able to play the claw machine and try to win a Gigi penguin. So when you talk about more than a product, when you talk about building a culture, and by the way, being a science guy that I am, I'm going to read you my definition of culture, because there's 2 definitions on there. And the one that I like, because I'm a biologist by nature, or by degree, I should say, is maintain conditions suitable for growth, right? That's biology definition. And I think that's the culture that as educators, we really need to focus on creating, is, and going back to everything I said today, what's your impact versus your intent? And can you say that what you're doing is making a difference? Is it supporting teachers? Is it helping teachers help students raise student achievement and growth? So I'm going to open up the questions now.
No, we appreciate you, Brian. Thank you so much for sharing everything that you've done in Moline Coal Valley. And our contact information is up there. Brian generously offered his email address as well. So Shar's is up there, mine is up there, and then our Twitter handles as well. And STNAP is at STNAP and at Mind Research. So feel free to contact us with any questions at all. And thank you so much for coming in today.